reason Yahweh may send HaSatan into your life is because your way is reckless before him. You need to receive that. Stop thinking that some outside entity is just waiting to figure out ways to mess with you. All he wants to do is just figure out ways to mess with you and screw with you and mess your whole deal. No, it could be coming from Yahweh. I'm making a case that Satan generally works for Yahweh. We'll see that certainly in Job. He is sent because your way is reckless before him. In this case, maybe not all cases, a reason, not the reason, I'm just saying a reason Yahweh may send a Satan into your life or make you available to be messed with by an adversary, an accuser, an obstructor, someone in opposition, a slanderer, or whatever it is in your life, is because you may be being reckless in your ways before him. You guys really need to focus on this idea. Reckless is not just running off and doing, it's not just, I didn't say it wasn't. It's not just running off and doing stuff you know you shouldn't do. Reckless is also going to include often hearing only what you wanted to hear, or only focusing on the piece you wanted to focus on, so that you think you have permission to do something that you really shouldn't do. Because you heard and then acted upon only the part you wanted to hear. Because I see that's what happened here. Bilam is listening and all he heard was, rise and go with them. That's all he heard was, rise and go with them. He didn't hear the if. Otherwise you have to sit there going, that's really weird. It sounds like, and a lot of you get confused in the beginning when I first teach and say, I don't understand why he got in trouble. Yahweh said he could go, and then he got up and he went. No, he gave a very specific if in front of it. There was a prioritization of something that must happen or you don't get to do this. There's something that had to happen first. If, then you do this. To not do it that way is reckless. When you question, oppose, attack without knowing the full story, because you can't always see everything. How many times have you had, this is something I hated as a kid, I understand it as an adult. When you told your child, or you heard this as a child, because I said so. Why did the parents say that? A couple of reasons. One is, they don't want to argue with you anymore. The other is, I don't need to explain myself, you need to trust me. Because I said so should be enough. Isn't that exactly the entirety of this whole story of this book? Our covenant is basically agreeing to do because he said so. Why are we covenanting? Because we trust that we can trust when he says so. And so here, you're seeing that the word Satan fits in the designation of anybody that stands in opposition of an authority. Why are you opposing authority? See, but again, this is what translations do us no help. I don't know what the right word is there. It doesn't help, because if you read adversary, you don't know that it says Satan. And so you're thinking that Satan or Satan is only used referring to, as you were raised your whole life, believing in this being called Satan. I just named a couple of guys here, Hadad, and this other guy, as adversaries. This other guy was who? Rezon. These are just people acting in a role, raised by Yahweh to be Satans against somebody, to obstruct, to oppose, to interfere. That's essentially what we should understand the adversary does, is he encourages you in places where you are kind of really wanting to be in opposition to what Abba wants. We're talking about the exact same incident, are we not? 1 Chronicles. And Satan stood up against Israel. 2 Samuel. Yahweh's displeasure burned against Israel, and he moved David to number Israel. Not what you were taught in church, huh? Now that's not to say he didn't use a being that's an adversary to inspire David, but it came from Yah. Yah's displeasure burned, and he moved David to number Israel. It says the displeasure of Yahweh burned and moved David to, against them to say, go number Israel. Where's Satan in Samuel? But we see him in Chronicles. The whole conversation with Joab is the same. So we know it's the same incident. And so just understand, things that make you go, okay? Not exactly how you always saw Satan. It's still not what you were told. Because we were told, basically, this being is to blame for everything. Have you seen Satan yet to blame for anything? You might say, well, what about in the garden? He's not even called Satan in the garden. He's still not to blame. Oh, sure, he tempted her. He talked to her. Well, he's still not to blame. Remember, the subtitle was this, did the devil make you do it? I don't think so. I don't think so. Stop saying the devil made you do it. Man, all of a sudden I want to do my Flip Wilson, never mind. Okay? The devil made me do it. All right, never mind, all right? Or whatever that guy was on Saturday Night Live. Satan, church lady, remember that? But stop it, okay? There's no outside being causality-wise, like a causally making you do anything. Who? You incited who against what? Elohim gave the permission. Remember Amunah? Everything is caused or allowed. He said, you incited me against him to destroy him without a cause. You said, take all these things away and see if he doesn't curse you. You incited me against him. So I gave you permission, right? Cause or allow. So he's causing or really allowing Satan to do this. But this is really Yahweh's fault. He was incited to it. He said, fine, because this is a great lesson for all of us to watch how it plays out, right? And he says, yet in his integrity. Do you understand that when we talked about this last night, about the whole reason, like the wilderness, Deuteronomy 8:2, that you're allowed to walk through your own personal wilderness, was to see if you had the integrity in your heart to keep the commandments or not under all your adverse situations? That's why you must go through adversity, to test to see whether or not you will hold to your integrity. There's nothing happening here unauthorized. There's nothing happening here that's not serving Elohim's purpose. What's the purpose we see playing out? To either A, act as an obstruction to something that should not happen, or act as an obstruction to see what you'll do with that obstruction. There were those that stood up to David. David's like, no, I'm not listening to you, obstruction. The obstruction was in front of Balaam. That was an obstruction that was to keep him from being reckless. Then we see an obstruction happening with Job's life, and that's an obstruction again to test opposing him to test his integrity. All of these things end up serving Yah's purpose. And it's to the benefit ultimately, so far what we're seeing, potentially, right, to the benefit of everybody involved. Everybody that the Satan is standing in front of or interfering with or getting in the way of or interacting with, it is potentially to the benefit of the one they're opposing, the one they're being an adversary to. Where would be the growth? Where would be the free will? Where would be the uniqueness that you would bring into this forever? If he could just make you do everything, then he would just make rocks do it or whatever. He wouldn't need you to have all of you in there with your flavor and personality and quirkiness and goofiness and seriousness and whatever. You bring your stuff. One of the things I love about all of you is you're different. Every one of you is different. I don't ever sit down and talking to somebody and go, man, you're exactly like this other person. Like I might as well be talking to them. You're not. Everybody's different. Now, you may do something that's similar to somebody, but as a full package, as a whole, you are not the same as anybody. Ultimately, we want to be like Job. Job is the well-done, good and trustworthy servant of this book. He's the best example, other than Yeshua, of the well-done, good and trustworthy servant. That's my opinion. You know why? Because he's the only one that Yahweh points out that way. He goes, consider my servant Job. Of everybody on the planet, that's who he picked? That's pretty good. That guy's doing his job. And he knew what HaSatan would do. And he had no worries that Job would pass the test. Because he wasn't trying to test Job. He was trying to make a point that we could all read about to show what integrity looks like under all of the stresses, strains, and attacks, and oppositions, and obstructions, etc. What does that look like when everything is falling apart around you? Because what you normally do is say, well, where's God? He abandoned me. He's forsaken me. I don't see Job doing that anywhere.